Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Input Optional Judging stream. I am your host, Shibanya, and I am joined this evening by your esteemed judges, who I will allow to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Ash. I am a voice actor, indie and anime and stuff. I'm also a visual actor. I'm a solo dev, so I do the whole everything and don't sleep. Yeah.
And hey everyone, it's me. It's Mihai or Michael Azekis. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm a voice actor out of Dallas. If we haven't had the chance to work together yet, and I've worked on a number of games: Smite, Nobunaga's Ambition, Taishi. Currently working on Red Star Azimuth with Shibanya. And I also do a few things of some weird Japanese thing called anime. I don't know what they are. I talk funny
weed.
voices to replace the Japanese style.
If you're doing a full introduction, dang.
All right, Ash, give us the full intro for yourself as well.
Oh, the full intro.
The full
I'm
Ash.
I'm a voice actor for indie games, including things like My Time at Porsche and Infinite Adventures and much other things you probably haven't heard of. It's cool, it's fun, I understand. I'm also an independent visual novel developer, currently working on a game called The D Stands for Demon, which features Shibanya as a dragon man. Very, very exciting.
Believe it!
I occasionally also appear in anime sometimes when I go up there to do it. It's very exciting.
Awesome. Well, we have gathered here this evening to judge these fine input optional games. And for those new to Dogpit Jams, I'll give y'all a rundown of how this works. We have 3 categories: best art, best audio, and best dev, which means best cool mechanic or thing that's clever. And then we have another category, best of jam. And this is promotion style. Whatever game wins best of jam does not win the other categories. Instead, the runner-up of that category gets promoted. So at the very least, we'll have at least 2 winners. So for each category, we'll be naming a winner and then a runner-up. So pay attention, because the runner-up may end up being the winner later. So I think we ought to start out by discussing best art. So I'd like to hear from y'all. Just toss out, some of the entries that you tried that you thought had some good art.
There's 2 in particular that I felt really I liked the most. I liked T-Bot. It was cute and it was quaint and it was charming, and
oh yeah,
I thought it was just really cute. I thought it really presented itself well. You knew what was going on. The very good visual language of this is what's happening in this game. And then I really liked the one that was the seashore one.
Seashore. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. I think, is that what it was called?
Yeah, it was called Seashores. It was good.
Yep.
I don't know things. There we go. There, the seashore. As I go through my notebook, look at notes. Yeah, I like Seashore. I liked it was all art. So those 2 in particular. I also liked the art in the Night, but in a different way. I just thought it was kind of clever because with it being a visualizer. Mm-hmm. But the T-Bot and the Seashore.
So I had a few that I really enjoyed for the art. And right out the box, I'd also like to give a shout out to System Logoff for Little T-Bot. And Sissel has such a well-established style that's been his aesthetic for years of jams, and it maintains a bounciness and energy. There's something about it that is just fun, and the sprite artwork, original for every game, along with also reusing characters so that thematically it's yet another chapter in his works. And even just seeing the little Easter eggs that are included. So all of a sudden, all right, you're making your various forms of tea, and they want real tea, they want unfiltered tea, they want, or rather, sugar. So they want sugar. They want real sugar. Sugar quotation marks. And it's a lot of fun to watch as it was being created, since there was just the Easter eggs and the colorful nature of it. It was just fun. And I enjoyed watching it and seeing each chapter as it was made. Next to that, I really enjoyed Tam Abomination. Thank you, there we are. By Vulture Party, Clay Zula, and Eco, as the art that was there, simple, but had a cuteness to it that reminded me of playing with Tamagotchi years ago. And so that just kind of, trot around, have a little bit of fun, just enough of character so that it's fun to watch. And the cuteness of the sprite is adorable. So just watching that virtual pet during the live stream, I was just sitting here going, "Oh, so cute."
Oh yeah.
I'm tempted to pet it because it's so cute.
Oh, good thing there was a pet button.
I know, right?
My short list is a lot like y'all's. Burn the Night was an amazing entry to start out with. Rainbow Cemetery's visual style is so distinct, and it really evokes like that kind of spooky Ghost in the Machine kind of feel of, I don't know if you were a kid playing like old NES games, wondering if maybe they were a little alive. That's how I feel whenever I play one of Rainbow Cemetery's very retro-styled games. What I admired about the art in Burn the Night, aside from it being a visualizer, which is totally my jam, is the sprite art, the dithering. Very unique to his style, very retro, but also very well done. I really appreciated seeing, like, when the cloud went over the moon, the pixels above the moon changed color almost to simulate, in a pixel art way, subsurface scattering or the transparency or translucency of the cloud. And I thought that was an excellent touch. I also thought that Little T-Bot excelled for all the reasons you said. System Log Off also has a super distinct style that he has developed over the years, and he just gets better and better. And I am amazed at how appealing and cute and distinctive his art is without looking like all the other pixel artists out there. Tam Abomination was really cute. I like the hearts that came out of the creature when you pet it. With the hearts coming out.
And they kind of burst.
And I loved how it kind of imitated that old LCD screen because the background was that sort of gray-green, like the original Tamagotchi. And shout out to Seashore, which not only was very beautiful to look at, but is an outstanding technical accomplishment. I'll go into that probably when we talk more about Best Dev, but that itself is remarkable. I think that was Tyler who made that. Well done. I will heap more praise upon you later.
Tyler Rhodes.
So now that we've talked about that, now comes, the contentious part. Now we need to start talking about who we think ought to win.
Round one, fight.
I think for me, in no order, it's between Little T-Bot and Burn the Night.
That's definitely where I sit too. It's just kind of a matter of if I have to choose between those, like that's where kind of I sit too. And between the two, I feel like I lean a little more toward T-Bot, just as my own. I feel like I lean a little more toward T-Bot.
I do for me too, especially for the attention to detail and not that Burn the Night didn't have an attention to detail, but the little cute touches. The characters, and then the what was cute was I don't know how the Love engine works, but if it was Unity, it would have been particle effects, like the steam coming off of the tea was a nice touch. It's nice. I don't know. What do you think, Mihai?
Well, looking at the two of those, Burn the Night, it was impressive how it did have a color shift that went on as the game was played. And so you would actually see the aesthetic change as the main character was trotting through the fields, emulating that transparency and just really nailing the aesthetic of that ZX Spectrum style, where here are I believe the cassette reading bands with the visualizer. It was something that to see each step that it went through, it really pulled together everything in a great aesthetic. And even knowing that it was a visualizer was really cool. And in that same, to contrast it, loving little T-Bot as well, because it just, again, it's bouncy, it's fun, it's got Easter eggs all over the place. It's something that there's no lack of, I want to see another round, I want to find out what happens.
You know what, though? You know what's starting to clinch it for me is theme adherence. Little T-Bot pretty clearly hits the theme on hits the spot. You know, that T is hitting the spot.
Mm-hmm.
There was some very loose theme adherence on Burn the Night. And that makes me lean...
I felt the same way.
Yeah, that makes me lean Little T-Bot.
Because now, also looking at art, how Seashore artistically was visually stunning. It was something to get that relaxing feel of it. It really brought up a sensation of just hitting a spot of calmness I got. So looking at something thematic that also is a contender for gorgeous art. I think we had a few rendering issues just depending on whose GPU was able to show
I'll be
what.
honest, I ran it after I shut down OBS, all the OBSs, and it still chugs on my machine. But I
didn't have any problems on mine. I'm aware of. I mean, maybe it's supposed to look different than it does.
For mine, it just moves very choppily. But I may need to replace my GPU. My computer's getting up in years. But I will fight for Little T-Bot as winner with Burn the Night as runner-up. So now I need somebody to fight with me. Or agree. All right. Mihai, do you...
I agree. Sorry.
So how this judging goes is we do everything by consensus. It's not a vote. It is consensus. So you need to either be convinced by us or you need to convince us. So what are you going to do?
Well, the one thing I will say, looking at Little T-Bot, is if it could be a detriment, is recognizing the distinct styles that each creator has. And so the pixel style that Sissel has had has been his style for the last few jams. And so it's excellent in its accomplishment. And the only thing that I would wonder is, it is almost expected that that style maintains that excellence. So would we look for a little bit of a challenge to someone's general aesthetic?
Yeah,
well, one would argue that's the same thing with Burn the Night.
Yeah, because that's exactly Rainbow Cemetery's aesthetic as well. And I don't know if, I think it's unfair to say you just did the same style you always did, because I did not put in the jam rules, this is a totally new style input optional jam. But I see what you mean in that, it'd be nice to see people branch out and try crazy new things. But I think if we're comparing Burn the Night and Little T-Bot, neither creator has an advantage in doing something wild and crazy and outside of their visual aesthetic. It'd be crazy as if System Logoff did a Rainbow Cemetery style game and Rainbow Cemetery did a System Logoff style game.
They should switch. They should switch.
Hey?
Well, Mihai, people liked your suggestion of doing like a make a game in the style of another jammer game jam.
Oh my god!
I think that would be fun if we let people pick.
With that said, I would agree that System Logoff, I think, nails the art every time, and I love his work and just the fun of watching it, even when not playing. It's just fun to watch everything happen and see, oh, what'll change when this happens? The visual communication is just excellent.
Because I'll point out, in addition
this time too,
to the character art and the props, like the sugar packets, is that you always know it's a System Logoff game because of the menus and text, which are distinct, and he's made them himself. And I think he's made his own library for animating text. And I think that's amazing. There are not very many, I'll like all my friends and game devs, I can't think of too many where I can see one of their games and instantly know it was them. But with System Logoff, I always do, because his games just, they're so appealing. I don't know. So are we in agreement?
Yes, I hear agreement.
I love System Logoff's work, and I would definitely give him the point for best art, yes.
All right. So at this point, we have winner of Best Art is Little T-Bot by Team Retro Leaf, headed by System Logoff, with Wilfer doing music, and the runner-up is Burn the Night by Rainbow Cemetery. Nice job.
Love these games. Bravo.
Now we are moving on to Best Audio. And all throughout, without too much detail, I'll let y'all fill that in. Some games I thought needed some shout-outs for good audio. No particular order. Tam Abomination, Wadden Robot Spotball League 2084, Little T-Bot, Spotlight, and Burn the Night. So what were y'all's lists?
Mine were a lot of the same ones. I really enjoyed like the voiceover stuff from Wadden. It was odd and peculiar, and it made me smile. What was one of the ones you said? You said Wadden and Spotlight and
Little
Burn the
T-Bot
Night
and
what
Burn
else?
the Night.
Little T-Bot. Okay, Little T-Bot. Obviously, Wolfer is cool. I love Wolfer's work, so that's always gonna be like, oh yeah, Little T-Bot.
Oh, yeah.
What's funny is my first instinct for Burn the Night was to be like, okay, as an audio synthesizer, this is pretty cool.
Mhm.
Then, like, as I really got to thinking about it, and I really liked the audio that the browser version of the game comes with. Like, while I enjoyed like the audio synthesis part of it, the fact that you like load in your own music, it's like, okay, well, is the audio itself really part of the game as far as the development side?
You could
after I
argue
thought
that.
about it some more.
Or that could be
Yeah.
part of the best dev. So
Right, yeah. So that was kind of that's why my first instinct was like, oh yeah, this would be a good contender for like, best audio. But then I thought that was my reasoning for kind of backing away from that idea,
Mhm.
was because the audio itself isn't really part of the game. And so I ended up landing on one of my favorites. I mean, obviously all those are really great, but I
Mhm.
think the one I found the most interesting from audio perspective was Spotlight.
Oh yeah.
And from my understanding from reading it, it's randomly generated tones.
Yeah, that's procedurally generated
Yeah.
music.
That's what I was looking at, and it sounds good. Like for procedurally for proc gen music, I was like, this sounds pretty good. Like I didn't
Oh, yeah.
sound like proc gen music, and so that for me was very standout in that it sounded good and it was technically very intriguing.
Oh,
So that's
I
kind
don't
of
know
where I
if you
landed.
caught the stream, but I said at several points like I wish
missed
there
it
was an
now.
export button. Like Dieting Hippie, you got to add an export button in a future release. And I think I think I wouldn't nominate it as a winner, but I gave a shout out to Tam Abomination because it has a really cute track by Clay. So that was nice, and it's got that brah when you hit pet.
See, that was the thing. Like it didn't like I can't even hear it in my head. Like it didn't really like. So like it might have been good. It didn't like just stick with me though. So I didn't really like.
Yeah, it's not a
So I
winner
did
in this
like the raw.
category,
The raw
but
was-
shout out because the music was cute, and I
And
will
the
also
raw,
give-
the raw was pretty good. The raw was pretty
Yes,
The
I will
raw.
give a shout out to the Restaurant That Learns because that had a cute track as well that I enjoyed.
Yes.
I'll
say, looking at a few of those, Tam Abomination, I loved Clay's track for that, as it just really summed up the cuteness of the game. And my other ones with that would have been Wadden and also Spotlight. And Wadden in particular, since it had sound design and voiceover and music, and it had so much content that was put in for a 2-week jam, I just went, whoa.
it was an
And
11-day
listening-
jam.
He's so even shorter, and it was so much content to really complete the piece that it was just an excellent composition of everything, and really brought together with this just being a game that you were watching. And
Yeah, I think-
for the point that we've talked about, that it was procedurally generated music, so you're listening to content that there's something else coming, and it's when you can change it that little bit, but how everything comes together, but also generally harmoniously, albeit changing the tone sometime in a few. It was great. You took my thunder by mentioning the Restaurant That Learns, since the only thing I wish that game had, which would probably not be possible as we were narrating, as there's the beautiful, delightful, relaxing aesthetic, and just hoping there was some Garcon that was just going, "Yo, oh there," something like that, just add a little more element.
Well, I will tell the dev that what that game really suffered from was a lack of feedback to the player on the one input that they had. If there was a button click noise, that would have improved the experience immensely, because you may have seen on stream there are several times where I clicked the button, I was like, "What, did I click it?"
I went that went the exact same experience. I was just like, I don't. Did input haptic feedback, please?
But as they saw on stream, I enjoyed it. But I would like the dev to make like at least one post jam release where you add some feedback on that button, so we know that we hit it.
Yes,
I think,
or even like a highlight or something.
Yeah, visual highlight would be good too. But I think we're in agreement. The heavy hitters in this category are Wadden and Spotlight. I'm assuming it's Wadden, like with the A like Apple because of Madden. But I don't really know. Wadden, Madden. I don't know. There are a lot of Waluigi teams. I think it's Wadden and Spotlight, and that it's a tough pick because I will highlight Wadden had music. I played all these games again this afternoon. Had music, had sound effects, had voice acting, and it had quite a bit of voice acting, and that was really cute, like context sensitive. And then Spotlight being incredibly impressive because it was procedurally generated music. And not only was it procedurally generated, the songs flowed nicely between each other. I know Dieting Hippo confirmed on stream that they were all the same tempo, but it's still impressive to be going through these scales, because he said they were based on like grab a scale and then procedurally generate, a tune based out of that. That is really impressive, and audio was central to that entry, and I think Dieting Hippo hit that one out of the park. So this is a tough one. I want to hear y'all argue about who you think ought to win.
I definitely am leaning toward, not that I don't find Wadden's use of voice and sound effects and stuff impressive, because absolutely, I'm not gonna fucking say it's not. Can I cuss? I didn't even ask. Like, I was just like,
it's a crucial. Yeah, you can cuss. I've said fuck cool. Like 5 times already.
I don't, you know what? I'm so tired.
Fuck, I need to get my count up.
Oh damn. Not that Wadden's use was like not super impressive. Like, I know what that's fucking like. To get that kind of shit into a game in that quick of a time. But I'm so impressed by the proc gen music that like it's above and beyond typical audio interface and making it the central gameplay element of the game. Like, and making it work so well as a central gameplay element of the game. I was like, I'm gonna press space and hear the next song. Oh, look at the bunny. It was very like that makes me lean a lot Spotlight because of those aspects of it. Like yeah, Wadden was very prolific, but it was like not necessarily anything like new, if that makes sense. Like, it was good, but not necessarily new and interesting.
You have to agree in terms of outstanding innovations in audio, it would definitely go to Spotlight.
Yeah. Right. Then that's kind of where I lean.
Me too. What do you think, Mihai? Michael?
So I would actually look at Spotlight more for the dev aspect of the audio, as I really appreciated the development side that went into the audio. But when playing each experience, what I felt out of Wadden was just something that it came together for the cohesive enjoyment, and something that felt more, I'm experiencing the audio versus the technical element that has created this. And looking just at audio, where Spotlight I would put more towards the dev category, because it also did have the animations that corresponded to it a bit more tightly. And I liked that fullness of a game. Even with Spotlight, I wish there was wish there had been a little bit of responsiveness when changing a song, because it would be, all right, the next song is queued up, but I would have to then listen closely to go, is it another one? Okay, yes, this is another one.
That is true. In terms of user experience, I think Wadden did present the better user experience.
Right. Which is why I tend to look at Wadden for maybe something else.
I see.
Although, if Wadden wins Best of Jam, then whatever is behind it gets promoted. But
With the theme, though, I would also like to renominate Burning the Night, since looking at that and just the overall aesthetic it had with its included song
but what?
and the
How does
somberness.
that? You said theme. How does that hit the spot? Because I would actually, if we're going on theme adherence, I would give more weight to Wadden with Spot's Ball, because that was like a super literal interpretation. Whereas Spotlight is a bit more tenuous because you've got, Spotlight and music possibly hitting the spot, but it is a bit more of a tenuous theme connection.
I'm trying to, like, unless
have
I'm
any part in the gameplay.
Like, I'm trying to, like, from like a theme perspective, unless it like totally like didn't work at all, I'm just kind of like,
oh, nobody's gonna get disqualified.
Like, yeah,
it's just sort of it's bonus points. It makes us feel slightly.
I mean, that's fair. No, that's
more,
fair.
yeah.
That's fair.
It's definitely a tiebreaker, I would say. If we had a tie between two games, we'd go with one that was more theme adherent.
And looking at this, it would depend on how one is interpreting the theme. Burn the Night, I felt, had a very good feel for hitting the spot. It hit this aesthetic that I'm feeling, oh, this is a very appropriately mooded game. While Spotlight, literal hitting the spot. For that one, I'd say there's also a little bit of perhaps even a double layer, since there were percussive instruments. And so using that to generate the sound.
I would not consider Burn, although I love the music for it, I wouldn't consider it a contender versus Wadden, though, because Wadden was like the full package. It had sound effects, it had music, it had voice acting. Whereas I loved the audio of Burn the Night, but I feel like it can't stand up to Wadden and Spotlight because it doesn't have the impressive bells and whistles that those two games bring to audio. Man, this is a tough category.
Feeling that, and just the notion of procedure generally, the procedurally generated music where everything managed to be harmonious with the logic that Dieting Hippo used, I would feel comfortable then agreeing with Spotlight in that case. It's and hitting the theme probably being that toughest spot, since, all right, you have the spot, I'm feeling the percussive instruments sort of adds that other element. I feel
I'm super conflicted.
Call.
Yeah, because I'm like, who do I honestly think right now, out of Spotlight and Wadden, who should win this category? Right now I'm still like, I don't know. Ash, what do you think? Change your minds. Convince us.
I'm still really leaning toward Spotlight. I really am, because the approach to audio is so unique, and it's in a category that's specifically audio focused.
Yeah,
Spotlight's approach to audio really makes me feel like I said with Wadden before, like, again, cool, great, awesome, but like,
I'm feeling that
nothing
too.
new and exciting. Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know what music Wadden had. I'm gonna be straight up. Like, it didn't leave much of an impression.
That might have been
on
stock
me.
music. I'm not sure. I know it had it because I played that game again this afternoon, but I don't remember it already. So I would agree, actually. I don't know. What do you think, Mihai? Because again, this is not a vote. This is a consensus. So this is your chance to change your minds, if you so choose.
I don't know. I'm lured by the goals of Wadden because it's got such color to it. But thinking about just how we're looking at best audio then, because Spotlight, again, it technically is the most fascinating for the implementation, versus Wadden, which is complete package of something that is the most fleshed out of these, and I'm trying to decide through which prism it is better to look at that best audio category.
Going back to, because we have the theme hits the spot, but we also have sort of the macro jam theme of input optional. In a way, I feel like Spotlight embodies that theme better because it's not trying to be like a multiplayer game that just has all CPU players. It is an experience that is truly input optional. Of you can enjoy the proc gen music, and when you're ready to move on, you can hit your input. Whereas Wadden is imitating a type of game where you put an input, sports game, but just replacing. Well, I shouldn't say just, because it was enormously complicated and an outstanding accomplishment. Yeah. But one could argue that it is not as true to the theme because it's simulating. I mean, it's got computer players pretending to be humans, whereas Spotlight is truly a game where it doesn't make sense to think of it in terms of who is playing or who's the opponent.
Mm-hmm. It's the perspective of the experience.
Yes.
So,
like, are you engaging with the experience, or are you watching the experience from above? And
with that, Spotlight did fit. It was one of the games that really the input was optional, as opposed to input not available. It was a fully simulated experience.
Mm-hmm.
So by that, the fact that the user could control the audio is unique.
So that's why I think the winner in this category ought to be Spotlight, with runner-up Wadden. But
yes, I agree.
What are your continuing reservations, Mihai? We should debate this. We'll hash this out. Everybody in the Twitch chat right now is going to be like, "Oh
no!" I'll admit I'm feeling a little bit of a conversion as we're talking about the input optional element, because I think it was the only game, with the exception of Burn the Night, where you could program it in your own music, where the user could manipulate the music but didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
And since Spotlight does have that technical element,
if we want to get super meta, because this doesn't have to count for anything, but since we're all judges, our opinion just makes it so don't worry about like what is the official way this category is done, because it's whatever you want it to be. You're a judge. But when I first proposed this jam, as the One Cool Thing jam, where everybody had 2 weekends to make one cool thing, show off one cool thing, and I was persuaded to change the name of the jam to Input Optional Jam because some other folks raised concerns that one cool thing was not clear enough or was too ambiguous. So if we go by my original intention of this is the One Cool Thing jam, I think Spotlight fits. Not that should be like a huge criteria, because it's not fair to say like she'd have done this theme that I talked about in the Discord before I said the name, but it is the one cool thing, whereas Wadden, I can't identify the one cool thing.
I think that's a good way of looking at it, though, to kind of help the...
You may have heard me say in the stream several times, like, you guys are scoped, or this was an appropriately scoped of, I wasn't looking for, a massive whole package epic game experience. I was looking for, well, as I said, show me your one cool thing. This is one of the reasons why I praised Tam Abomination and Seashore as being appropriate, because it's like, you guys are showing me your one cool thing. So through that lens, that makes me lean Spotlight, because that is one cool thing that is executed extremely well.
And it is the most innovative with the audio, and the one that, again, does have input optional that is central to it, so you can zone out and enjoy it, versus change it up and, here's a new arrangement.
True, because
I feel comfortable with that.
Because, Wadden also did well in that, it is input optional. Because these are both obviously very strong entries, so we don't mean to hate on Wadden or anything.
No. It's one of those, you have to make a choice. Like, you have to make a choice.
They're all our favorite children. We just have one that's more favorite than the rest.
Going to the actual stated theme, which is input optional, one thing that I think also works in Spotlight's favor is that Wadden's one input is, at the end of the match, You've got sort of like your camera pans on the scene, and you can skip ahead to the next match by doing your input. But no matter what you do, something happens, so your input has no actual effect on the outcome. Whereas with Spotlight, your input is, of course, truly optional because you can keep listening to that music, but your input, in fact, queues up another procedurally generated loop. So your input does actually change the experience that you will have. So I think that is a better use of the one input.
Yeah. I definitely agree with it, just since it is central to the audio element there.
So are we in agreement now then? Do we think that we ought to have winner, Spotlight, and runner-up Wadden Robot Spotsball League 2084? Speak now for the whole piece.
Yep, I'm satisfied with that.
All right, cool. Well, congratulations to winner of Best Audio Spotlight by Dieting Hippo, and runner-up Wadden. A bunch of like the former cooks, but not all of them. Like an even more sensible and reasonable number of cooks.
I'm good because that was just far too many cooks.
Moderately
I know our
excessive number
team.
of cooks.
I know our team name was a sensible number of cooks, but secretly, it was not a sensible number of cooks.
Takes a lot to make
I'm trying to think. I believe we had 20 for that.
It's like 20, 21, something like that.
Gracious,
Golly.
Something like that. It's ridiculous.
remarkable.
It's like we're the world aid of game dev. Just bring in everyone.
Well, our next category is Best Dev, and I know this is a confusingly named category, but this basically means like best mechanic or behavior or clever thing that wasn't specifically art or audio related. And excuse me, I'll name my short list for this would be Wadden, Spotlight, and Seashore would be my short list. What about y'all?
Wadden, for sure. I definitely feel like not knowing 100% exactly all the elements involved, it did appear to be very complex AI, which
It was impressive.
or semi-complex AI. It looked pretty impressive.
I could go into like the 3D animation and like the rendering and stuff. Like, it was incredibly impressive entry on those grounds.
Right. Like, even with my knowledge of 3D rendering and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, no, that's pretty, I say my knowledge, my degree included 3D and 3D modeling. I don't know why I sit here pretending I don't know anything.
See, I got a Bachelor of Arts, so in economics.
My degree's, mechanical electronics drafting. I 3D modeled. It was fun.
Sweet. It's fucking cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I never talk about that.
You should talk about that.
I know, right?
You're the only STEM one here among us.
But like so like seeing so like it was very, very clear to be it was very clearly complex AI. Goofy, the all the animation looked as good as it could be considering the amount of time involved. And then I liked Wadden, and then what was the other one again? You said Wadden and Spotlight and what else?
And Seashore.
Seashore was the other one. Yeah, I was going to agree with you. Knowing I know about Seashore makes me inclined to be putting it in the like Wadden was kind of my takeaway favorite for a while. But knowing what I know about Seashore, it really kind of makes me feel very inclined to say that's a very clever use of dev to do this thing, a sort of reductionist approach to development, and like, as opposed to taking art and making a game out of it, you're taking the game and making art out of it. What? Like that
it's
kind
like
of
everything you see on screen there is made out of math.
to it.
It's
Right. So as opposed to doing so as opposed to taking art and putting math and making art out of it. And I like that kind of weird reversal for something like this. It's intriguing. So that's where I kind of land right now.
And
this was probably the toughest. This was probably the toughest one for me because we had some excellent different directions with development. For me, Burn the Night for the fact that it had a working visualizer to take in any kind of music and also have this accuracy to the historic model on which it operated. Wadden because it's a fully fleshed out AI game. It's stunning. Spotlight, since procedural generation, and again, the logic that Dieting Hippo put in so everything worked, and also the restaurant that learns, because from how the behavior was, you could specify your favorite dishes so that this game, which had a procedurally generated element, could then generate things closer to what you liked. So if you like brisket, it's going to keep giving you brisket in all of the orders that come up, so you can manipulate it to give you something that is matching what your tastes are.
That was fun. That one loses points for me because of the critique we had for it before of its lack of user input. I'll tell y'all, my top two in no order are Wadden and Seashore, and I'll tell you why. I guess I'll start with Seashore. I found that incredibly technically impressive because almost everything you see on screen is a shader, which, as I mentioned, means that everything is formed out of math, like, specifying the circles you see, the shines you see, the reflections and light are done on the shader. And I do a lot of shaders, as some of you may know, and I understand how difficult that is. And that is outstanding. And it's also true to kind of the origins of the theme, as I mentioned before, the one cool thing, because I remember one of my proposed rejected names for the jam is like demo scene for people who don't know how to do demo scene. So I don't know if y'all are familiar with demo scene, but it's basically trying to make a cool thing, except as small as possible. Generally, I mean, there's a lot of different kinds of demo scene, but this was the closest we got to a genuine demo scene thing, because that often does involve creating something really visually beautiful and impressive that's like 60 megabytes or something, because it runs on the GPU and has not got any actual images inside of it. So like Seashore didn't have any actual like images inside of it. It's made on the GPU. So that alone makes it an incredibly impressive entry, although, as I said, I tried to run it after I closed OBS and it was still chugged on my machine, but that's my machine. Other people said it worked well for them.
I think that's the unfortunate thing about Seashore is it suffers because now while I'll admit I have the least technical background when it comes to programming, it is something that it was hard for everyone to enjoy, because with everything being a shader, as you said, it was chugging on your GPU. Mine was able to run it, and there was one other person in the chat during the stream had mentioned that they had a strong enough GPU where they could experience it. But it's something...
I'll let you finish.
Oh, but looking at it, it's something that it's unfortunate where if the development isn't optimized in a way that most players can enjoy, it's something to go. It does lose that element of really that feel it's getting. So trying to figure out if only it were a little more efficient, say an average system.
It could definitely be optimized. I spoke a lot of praise for it, but my personal nominee for winner in this category would be Wadden. And as y'all noted, it was the whole package. But there was a lot of really clever and really impressive stuff going on here, and I guess I will name some of it. First of all, the animations was impressive. 3D animation with Mechanim and Unity is not easy, especially if you are learning how on the jam, and I believe Takeso had not done that before, so he picked it up real quick. So you had these ragdolling robot characters who are running around as AI, who are realistically enough, being animated. That is impressive. And that game did not chug on my PC, which is also impressive because in Unity, it's not uncommon that if you have several animated Mechanim characters on screen at the same time, it can start to chug. But visually, that game was also impressive. You had, now I believe they didn't make their own assets, but I still give it points for good execution because you had, there were like reflections, there were definitely like post-processing effects being used, there were particle effects. The camera angles were great.
Normal maps, I believe you mentioned.
Yeah, they were, they were using the PBR materials. Pabst Blue Ribbon, which I maintain is the best $2 tall boy. And what was I saying? The ProcGen names. the Mars Hamburg Waluigi's and whatever. That was cute and fun. The use of voiceover. You had the ball. You had physics. They were bouncing that fucking ball around. It's just extraordinarily impressive all around. The number of complex systems that game required to even do what it did is really impressive. So that's why it would be my top pick, with the runner-up being Seashore. But I am ready to be convinced otherwise if y'all don't agree.
No, I absolutely agree. Those exact. I like one as well. It's very, very technically impressive.
Looking at it, the proc gen names was probably my favorite element, and the amount of content that went into it. Just the Kentucky Fried Waluigi is beautiful. Love it.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that Takeso had not tried. I believe you said it was implementing mechanim characters.
So yeah, Unity has a keyframe animation system with humanoid characters, which is known as mechanim. But to just sum it up, basically, 3D animation is hard. It's harder than a lot of people realize, and it is.
You don't just do a Blender model in 5 minutes.
What? You don't just press a button and it animates? Oh my god! What was all those years of Maya for?
What
classes of Maya for?
So not only is it impressive in general, but it's
Doing
impressive
it
for a novice. And it worked really well. And I think, they definitely played to the strengths of Unity's idiosyncrasies with robots that could ragdoll. But I think that in itself reflects, clever and judicious choices.
It's as a dev package, it's hard to find much to criticize, since if anything, the ragdolling would be something that you go, okay, you could probably put in some animations when you're resetting everything, since it can look a little lazy when everything just flops down.
That's actually not the default. That's not easy.
Yeah. Ragdolling isn't the
That's
the
actually a physics
ragdolling
simulation. Because the default of a character is going to be a T pose or an A pose.
Yeah. Did we have a T pose during any?
I didn't see anybody T pose to assert dominance.
We should have.
Well, I hope that if we get Wadden 2085, in that case, whichever team wins, they will then T pose at the very end of the match.
Yes,
I demand robots and bowler hats T posing.
Yes, and also just corgis, because let's add corgis.
Chanting the Halo theme.
Bueno. So are we in agreement?
Yes, I am with you.
Wadden is dev-wise astounding. If we had a runner-up for this, I'm still feeling a little uneasy about Seashore, just because it's hard to really enjoy it unless it's accessible to at least a larger audience not needing a top-level GPU.
Let's fight about the runner-up.
Yeah, I am, because I agree with Michael. Like it's if your game isn't accessible,
True.
then how do you play it?
I will say
personally, but
I may even be unfair judging it based on like what I know I would do to create that. So maybe it should stand alone on its own merits, not on like me speculating on how it was made.
Because I still think that's technically impressive, which makes it very difficult, because I do think that is a technically very impressive thing. But again, I agree that it's like, if it can't be like, if it can't be enjoyed, then what's the point? My only concern with putting something like the Hit the Spot, is that the restaurant one?
That was Restaurant that learned.
Well, I feel that
whatever.
That entry actually was less impressive. I'm sorry. Than Train to Nowhere, which also had proc gen stuff and made me laugh more, and had better user feedback. But if
that's exactly what I was about to say.
If I were going to name a runner-up that wasn't Seashore, the runner-up which ran the best on my computer that I think had the most impressive dev or most clever implementation would be Spotlight for the procedurally generated music.
See, okay, that would be a possibility. I was only bringing up the restaurant one because Michael had
Mhm.
mentioned it.
Mhm.
And my only thing with that one was I really didn't feel like I got feedback properly.
Same. I
Like,
actually
I'm
felt
sure
like
it
it
was
didn't
there.
adapt to what I did.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I understand what's happening on the backside. But then, yeah, I mean, if I had to, like, see, I like Train to Nowhere as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just from an aesthetic point of view, I thought it was funny. But again, from like, it didn't really feel like very technically challenging. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it was, and I just couldn't see it.
It,
I mean, because Random Generation is ridiculous.
yeah.
Um,
Looking at Train to Nowhere, I know I like Shibanya, I was loving the randomization as we were getting
Right,
on, and
exactly.
also that input element of, oh, suddenly you can see everyone's name and fetish and everything else along the way. It's hilarious. The only thing which I wouldn't put it for Dev for is it did lack audio, and
yeah.
I regretted that it didn't have it. As I just went, oh, this would have sealed the deal so nicely if it just had audio, and would take me back to my days of living in Washington D.C., riding on the metro all day, and that's pretty much what I would do on the metro is just go,
Right.
people watch.
So that's what, yes. That's what makes me reticent to put some. That's kind of where I'm at. And so if I had to pick a number two for Dev, I am again. I think like Giovanni, I'm leaning more towards Spotlight because of the proc gen part again.
Yeah, I think Spotlight was much more, not only more technically impressive, but more clever in the dev. Like it had a better mechanic as far as the theme goes than either of those. And that Train to Nowhere, I am not quite sure how that hits the spot. And with Restaurant That Learns, I do understand how that hits that spot, but I didn't have such a great experience with it because of the critique about the user feedback. And because, you know, I clicked the button a bunch, but I still didn't feel like it didn't. I felt like it didn't respond to what I had done.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Even
Milan?
as we were talking, I'm thinking again about Burn the Night, which how it.
I mean,
Oh, that's
no,
why it's good to have
fair.
multiple judges. You know, you get those different points of view.
Just looking at how it had implemented the visualizer to get that different feel with each song, and how scope wise it was very tight and excelled at what it did. And again, looking at my issue with Seashore, going, I just wish I could enjoy this on my desktop. My laptop would have choked if I probably would have choked, actually. I think it just looked something that really came together to be experienced as a developed game.
I would still nom Spotlight over Burn the Night because of the presentation and theme adherence of, you know, your one cool thing that you do well. Spotlight is the package in terms of like, this is a cool thing that it does well. I love Burn the Night and I think it's beautiful and I enjoyed the visualizer. But if I had to say, like, what is the cool thing of Burn the Night, it would be hard to encapsulate it. Of course, that's me being subjective. I think I'm also swayed by the fact that I've made visualizers before, and I find what's going on in Spotlight more technically impressive in terms of how difficult it is to do that. Or innovative, I suppose. Not to hate on.
See, I've never made a visualizer before, so I don't really know exactly the amount. I don't know what kind of work goes into a visualizer.
It's cool. You take the audio that's playing and then you take the spectrum data and analyze it, and so you can look at the spectrum data.
Convert it to a NES.
Yeah, like think of all along the spectrum of like if you've ever looked at like a multi-band compressor, you've seen like the different levels of stuff of think of it as a percentage of 0 being totally quiet and 100% being like as loud as possible, and then thinking about how am I going to visually represent like the percentage.
Okay, no, that makes sense. No, that makes sense. That tracks when I think about it. So yeah, it's basically just applying a gradient map, so to speak.
So there's a lot of cool. I mean, I love visualizers. It's really cool, and it definitely takes skill. But I am more impressed by Spotlight for being proc gen music. Because if you ask, like, you know, hey Shibanya, do you know how to make proc gen music? I'd be like, I don't know. Whereas if you said, like, do you know how to make a visualizer? I'd be like,
Right.
hell yeah. I don't know if that's a great way to
Right.
judge by, but that's
Well, no,
why.
that's fair. That's fair.
I just have to jump in.
looking
You don't know how to make proc gen music? Yeah.
Ooh,
Yet,
give it time.
yet. But it's not just proc gen, because, I mean, proc gen can be, I mean, I could take, like, beeps and boops and call it proc gen music for randomly throwing them together, but would it be pleasing to listen to? No, it would not. So it's not just
Exactly.
procedurally
Aesthetically
generated.
pleasing proc gen music.
Procedurally generated, because any asshole can make something procedurally generated. It's pleasing procedurally generated music, which is the really impressive part.
Yeah, I'm still leaning towards Spotlight as a runner-up for those various reasons.
Still feeling a little on the fence, but it for the dev element, it does excel.
Yeah, I think I support Spotlight as the runner-up as well. So do we feel good about that? How do we feel?
That's how I feel. I'm good.
All right.
I'm good with it. I am.
How do you feel, Mihai?
Sounds fair.
All right. So that means in the best dev category, we have the winner, Wadden Robot Spots Ball League 2084, and runner-up Spotlight. All right.
Woo.
So the next
Woo.
thing we have coming up is Best of Jam. We are now at the point that everybody's been waiting for. We are now going to determine the Best of Jam.
Woo!
So-
Best of Jam.
It's a tricky one. Tricky one. This is the game that embodies. It's just the best. It's the full package, the full Monty.
Que rico.
Que rico, yes. If I were to nominate a few on my short list in no particular order, I think I would mention, for Best of Jam, Wadden, Little T-Bot, Spotlight, and Burn the Night. How about y'all?
Yep. Exactly mine as well. Like those were my tops, but not like in that. Yeah. Like definitely leaning toward Wadden. I felt like it had a lot of all the things we talked about. Like it kept coming up. You know, it's like, okay, is this a thing? Is this good? I think feel like it could have been the best of multiple categories. And to me, that kind of feels like something.
It's definitely a strong contender.
A strong
for a game of
contender.
Jam.
And then I feel right, and then I feel the same way about. I feel similar about God, I love Spotlight so much. But I feel like it could have used like one more little thing to kind of push it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what. Because what it did was so cool.
Mhm.
But I
like,
agree,
it
like, in
could've-
this
but as far
category, I
as
feel
being
like-
like a total, yeah.
T-Bot's stronger, even though like I put Spotlight above it in the last two categories,
Right.
just because as a full package, or
T-Bot
T-Bot
yeah,
feels
as a
stronger,
full
yeah.
package. As a full package, I'm leaning toward T-Bot and Wadden because, you know, it's like maybe they weren't the best in every single category, but like they were contenders, you know, like they had something, you know, and they had a little oomph. Like,
they would both be great as like representatives of this jam.
yes, considerably.
What do you think, Mihai? Michael?
Looking at that, I'd say would be a fight between the four of those as well. I would probably be leaning towards Little T-Bot, Little T-Bot or Wadden. Spotlight, the reason I would not include that probably for Best of Jam is that it did use some it's
visually not
publicly-
as pleasing.
publicly. Yes. And it did have some publicly available assets, so it was something that didn't have the originality that the other games had.
Well, even apart from originality,
exactly.
even if those were original to the game, it still it didn't have as much visual pizzazz as Wadden or T-Bot.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Which it did have tightness in its execution, so that I would definitely give it credit for that.
But so did
Wadden-
T-Bot.
Hmm?
T-Bot was incredibly tight.
Yes, well, And that's why I would lean towards that for Little T-Bot and Wadden, because their execution was just it nailed everything. And I think my thing looking at Best of Jam is whether the accomplishment of a solo dev versus a very accomplished team, that we have two completely different scopes.
I feel like we can't look at the team and that because each comes with their own challenges. So yeah, T-Bot is made by basically entirely by System Logoff with Wilfer for music, and Wadden is made by a team. But we can't say, T-Bot's a better accomplishment because it was made by somebody by themselves, because working in a team is hard. It's a skill in itself.
It has the same level of, has
And also,
comparable levels of complexity.
What if we came in this blind and we didn't know how those were made? So
Yes.
I feel like I can't judge it based on knowing who made it. Although, I mean, obviously it's impossible for me to not know, but it makes it hard for me to lean one way or another on those grounds. But I think we're all in agreement. It's probably between those two, and it's a tough choice.
Especially because they have.
I lean Wadden just because of there's so much. There's so many details that are really fun about it, from the voice acting to the team names to the goofy robots that sometimes have funny hats. And, spots ball. You hit the spot, literally. It's funny to me that it's
Right.
the most literal possible interpretation of the theme. So I lean that as my best of Jam, but what do y'all think?
I do too. I mean, I feel the exact same way. I feel like it there's definitely some things that I feel like could be better. It's not perfect, obviously.
Mhm.
But as far as adherence to Jam, the elements, the level of complexity, because I love T-Bot.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to pick make that hard line, because you do, it would lean more toward Wadden because of its level of complexity and how much went into it, and having the whole package, and being goofy, and being a little more active maybe to watch. Despite the fact that I do love T-Bot immensely. It's so hard. It is so hard to pick between the two.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would think about when looking at the two of these is how long did each one keep a viewer's interest? And I'd be curious how long both of you felt I want to keep watching to see what happens next with each one of these.
See, I think
I would go with Wadden on
So
that
it was
one as
weird.
well.
I watched Wadden a lot. With T-Bot, I was watching it and I enjoyed it, but the learning that was happening with okay, oh, I don't like this in my tea. Oh, I don't like this in my tea. Oh, I love this. It's kind of a longer process, and so while it was still fun to watch, it was still fun to there was a limit. It was limited.
Mhm.
There's only so much that could be done with the assets available. When I feel with Wadden, it was the robot's got the ball. Now the other robot's got the ball. Now the robot's got the ball. Oh, is he gonna make it? Oh, he made it. Look at the guy go. It was very even despite the fact that I kind of thought some of the camera angles were a little bit oogly.
I also thought it was a more focused
I did
game.
spend longer watching it. Yeah.
I felt it was more focused in that, our objective is to depict, robots playing spots ball. Whereas T-Bot is sort of a little story or vignette about, a little T-Bot, which is super cute. I love T-Bot, making tea for these office workers who want to get what they like the best, but it was hard to perceive a cohesive... Is this a story of how the T-Bot is learning? It was unclear to me if there was actually any change or if it really was random every time, and I think it was random every time. It wasn't like the restaurant that learns. So to me that made it less focused. Obviously we're all subjective, but we're judging, and you guys listening are not, so there.
So
But yeah,
Ash,
I felt the same way.
Ash, since you mentioned the camera angles felt a little janky with Wadden, were there any points that either of you felt could have been done a little bit more effectively with it? One thing that I did get with Wadden that did bother me a little bit is sometimes with the procedurally generated names, it seems there was some text that was a little difficult to read. And in terms of seeing it, visually, sometimes there are a few things that did clash where I went, ooh, that UI wise was tough to see. Were there any parts that you felt were a little bit could have used improvement with it when you both had played?
That didn't stand out to me so much. I will say that UX in general is stronger in T-Bot, and that is definitely a strength that System Logoff has always had. But, one kind of, I don't know if it's fair, but symmetric I often think about when I think about, a best of jam is what's a game that I'm most likely to try to show like a friend who's a normie, who's not a big, game dev nerd. What game would be fun to like show my mom or something? And I would lean Wadden over T-Bot just because it's much easier to understand. Like, this is a fake sport with robots and they blow up and that's funny. Whereas T-Bot, I feel like my mom would find confusing.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like you're looking at it from a layman versus a, someone who knows the development process. And like, I don't recall having any specific issues with some of the text in Wadden. My issue is the camera angle in Wadden, which is something I definitely would want them to tighten up if they ever like turned it into something bigger. Just because they were kind of frenetic. It was like, camera there. Oh God, what's going on? I would definitely want them to sort of be like, I want, if in an ideal situation.
You know what it would have been
like
fun
Wadden,
as an input was if you press your one input and it would swap between cameras. That would have been fun.
Exactly. That's literally what I was about to say. It's like, or something like in a multiplayer game where you can like when you die in a multiplayer game and you can like switch between the camera over like one of your teammates. Like maybe there's 3 robots you can choose whose camera you follow and you can like switch. That would be the change that would
That'd
make
be really
like
fun.
that. But that's such a yeah. That would be the change I would make. But it doesn't necessarily for me disqualify it because you're always going to have bugs and weird and janky shit in a
Ironically,
game.
T-Bot was one whose UI actually I said, if you caught me on stream, I think I mistook a T for K at some point.
Yeah,
the font,
the kerning on some of the letters because that pixel font.
So I don't know. Your complaint about Wadden applied to T-Bot in my case, but I don't know, Mihai. Let's change your mind.
Text versus sprite and understanding just which element,
because they're both incredibly strong.
Both I had to look at. Yeah,
this is a battle of titans at this point.
And at least in one point with each, there was an element I had to look at twice. The next time it came up a rotation to go, did I read that as I thought I read it? Okay, yep, that's what I thought it was. Add Waluigi tier T, perfect.
If anything, they should have had more nonsense names.
Right?
It's expansion. You need more ProcGen name components because I saw too many Waluigis.
Yeah.
If there's such a
pull
thing
from that list of the baseball names from the NES
Bob's
game.
son Dugnut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, ideas for 2085.
There you go. All right, Mihai. How are you still holding out? How can we debate this?
And both.
It's all been like me. It's all been me and Shibani agreeing, and then just trying to get about Mihai to.
Make your case, Mihai. You got to argue with us. Agree with us or argue with us.
Pick one.
Porque no los dos. I agree to argue.
Okay.
Oh Lord.
Let's see. The biggest thing I'm thinking about with these two is if there's anything else I would have wanted to see from each. If there's something that could have put one in one category or another. Because the interesting thing about them is that they are so radically different in their execution, and yet
but the fact that you're still talking to us about it
effectively
means that you
nailing
still favor T-Bot, so you should convince us why, we should favor T-Bot. Or convince us why Wadden sucks. I mean, but don't compare them any longer, because basically we support Wadden, you support T-Bot, so make a case.
So
Debate me, coward. No, I'm just kidding.
is that a challenge?
Yes.
Oh my lord.
That's why you're here.
Why can't we have both be winners? They're so fabulous in the execution.
Well, I will let you know that
Mm.
either way they win because Little T-Bot won Best Art and
Yeah.
Radden won Best Dev.
Something's gonna move somewhere.
So no matter what, they've both won something.
I'll say, and I think that is the element that I did love the most about Little T-Bot is its art. It just is so charming, and sprite artwork. It has a soft spot for me.
It definitely had better original
Wad-
art.
And then thinking about looking at Wadden, the animation, the voiceover, the sound design, the fact that it, as Takeso said, he had not done this before, which is an impressive feat to use a jam to be able to develop a new skill. And I know that's been something you've wanted people to do for just each thing, is try something new.
That's the reason I have these jams. Get people to try new things. I don't think it's a fair metric by which to judge things, because I think we should try to pretend that we didn't know what happened behind the scenes. But in terms of growth,
right.
Wadden is more impressive in that it is true that system log-off is in well-trod territory here. I don't think I'd hold it against his game, but I love his game. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're talking about the two best games of the jam. But
Right.
I still support Wadden more for Game of Jam, just for being that whole package.
And for trying to push the boundaries and do something a little different and
Literally hitting the spot.
exactly. Literal adherence.
Literal theme
To,
adherence. How often can you ask for that?
And well done on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel satisfied with Wadden.
Yay.
All
There we
right.
go.
Just once we agree on the pronunciation of it.
Wadden, Robot,
Wadden.
Spotsball League 2084. Yeah, I guess that's how you say it.
Wadden Robot Sports Bellaga.
No.
Yeah, you sound like
No. Just no. I don't accept
You
that.
can't change my mind.
But that makes
Gwadden.
our winner, Best of Jam for Input Optional Jam, Wadden Robot Spotsball League 2084, and that means Spotlight has been promoted to Best of Dev with runner-up Seashore. All right, so to recap,
Very nice.
our winners are Best Art, Little T-Bot, Best Audio, Spotlight, Best Dev, also Spotlight, and Best of Jam, Wadden. So congratulations, everybody. Well done. This was hard. You guys heard us arguing. This is really hard. Amazing work, everybody. I want y'all to keep it on, do some post-jam improvements, and then move on to the next awesome thing. Prizes will probably be buttons as usual. I will be getting in contact with the winners after this. So let's see. Let's have some closing statements from our judges. I'll let Ash go first.
So, everyone did such a great job, and they had such interesting approaches to the jam. And I feel like everyone's ideas of input optional or a cool thing, and
that is a tough thing.
Because it's very, very tough. I wouldn't have even known what to do. Yeah, so I feel like everyone just they made it their own. They went very lateral with it. They tried to think of ways to adhere to that theme and adhere to those concepts in interesting ways. And I definitely loved how much AI work there was, just in general, and how much kind of random number generation aspects there were, and how much procedural generation there was just in general, coming from all the different things, and making that all kind of work cohesively and make cool little interactive experiences. So
And looking at all the games, how all of them just approach the theme from such different directions, and it's wonderful to see everyone's work and the effort everyone's put into trying something new and excelling at something even better. And it's so much fun to see everything that comes out of a jam and every crazy iteration from one theme. Just thank you everyone for sharing everything with us.
Definitely. And thank you, Ash, and thank you, Michael, for judging this awesome jam. And everybody stay tuned for news about prizes and the fall jam. And y'all have a great Saturday night. Say goodbye, everybody.
Doodles, y'all.
Bye. Goodbye.
Ciao.
Molto bene.
All right.